Welcome back. First DNS podcast in must be like a month or a couple weeks at least. We're back with I'm very excited to say this is our fantasy football edition. So it's Eddie here with Gene DeMayo. What's up, Gene?
Doing good. Just got out of work. This is fantasy football for dummies, like Eddie said, and we got a professional dummy in the panel today.
The one person in our league who is what you've always. How many of you have been last?
I came in last. I only been in last once.
Okay.
I think I've come.
But you never made the playoffs.
Never made the playoffs.
Right.
Only me and Crawford have never made the playoffs. So only 10 teams in the league. 8 teams have made the playoff at least once. Me and Crawford are only ones who haven't.
Wow. So that's our little intro for this. But yeah, like you said,
real geniuses tonight.
Fantasy football for dummies. No, but you're selling yourself short because everyone in our league is very good. Yeah. We are very good. It's a 10-team league. It's PPR, but we are very good at it, which is why I wanted to do this, because fantasy football is our one thing that brings the whole gang together. The band gets back. We're all here at the house in the live drafts, and something we really care about. With the trash talk all year long. It's one of our favorite things. So I know this podcast, when the time was right, we were going to do this and break down our favorite thing to do. So, like you said, fantasy football for dummies. We're going to get into the whole bust, sleepers, some strategy, because me and Gene can't give too much away. Our draft's coming up this Sunday, so all our buddies will be on this, listening to all our deep dark secrets we're going to do. But we'll get into that. We'll get into some players who like where you value them, where you rate them, if you want to go after them, if you want to pass on them. So we're going to go into that. Been a busy summer. I was away out of the country. I know Gene was just at bunch of wrestling events.
Some good wrestling out there.
SummerSlam pay-per-view?
SummerSlam pay-per-view in the Barclays Center. It's pretty good.
So we're going to get into, we'll let Gene dive into that, because I have some comments on that too at the end, so we'll save the wrestling stuff for the end. Is there any sports stuff going on? Mets doing really well. Yankees are kind of not doing as well as they were.
Right. So Mets, obviously Mets are kicking ass, but
yeah.
It's kind of Mets and Yankees are in opposite positions. They're both doing. I would say Mets are doing well. Yankees are doing okay.
Right.
But the Mets are benefiting because the Nationals are just falling off the map, and they're like below 500 now.
Matt Williams managed the year last year. Now the team isn't doing that team anymore.
Yeah. And then the Yankees are the opposite. The Blue Jays just can't lose anymore, really.
Yeah, besides that, I'm not sure else there's going on in sports. I know I work in the NBA. There's absolutely nothing going on for basketball, football.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're talking about that right now. So I guess we can get right into it. So like we said before, we and Gene have been part of this 10-team PPR league for quite some time with our friends from high school. Andrew Crawford, who we made fun of, does write for the rest of the blog as well. Joe, also, I guess, a part-time member of DNS because the kid's never available, but also a part of the league. So a lot of us who you've read and heard from are part of this. And we
Nick, too. We got Nick.
And Nick, right.
Yeah,
Nick joined the league.
New member of the league.
He's been in once before, and then Landy came back with another friend, and now he's out again, it seems, for good. So Nick is doing us a huge favor, and we're glad to have him there because he knows his stuff. So it should be a fun day Sunday. That rhymed. And our usual 10-team PPR, I think we have to do 18 rounds, 18 picks. It's the thing we all look forward to. So we are here to give our knowledge to you, our fans and listeners and readers. We'll start off right off the bat. Off air, I think it's a good starting point for this. Gene was talking about his prep. So we'll get into our prep work first. What we do for prep. If you're listening to this right now, never done a fantasy draft before, this is how you go about doing your thing. So Gene was saying that he made. You can explain it better. Tell the absurd thing you were just doing with your research.
So typically, my prep consists of nothing. I usually kind of follow football a little bit, just going. So everyone in our league is the one who does a lot of prep. I try to think, all right, if that's for some people, like for you especially, a few years in a row you did a lot of prep, and the first 2 years you finished in last.
That was also, yes, you're right. A lot of prep and a lot of buying into certain strategies, which we'll get into later on.
Right, yeah.
That could also skew. Your best bet is to go with your gut, but anyway.
So this year I decided to do the opposite, and I got into like
the George Costanza.
The George Costanza. Is anything you're gonna do, you do the opposite. Right. Chicken salad on toast. Chicken salad on rye and a cup of tea. And it's not a potato salad. It's the George Costanza.
And then woman orders the same exact thing, and you talk to her, and there you go.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. Then, so this time I did the opposite. I got into the kind of math that they only did in Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey, like where they discovered like the density of a black hole. Got into like teams play calling tendencies, like how much one coach could change. Like so, team play calling tendencies from last year, how much they run versus how much pass. Pretty straightforward. You know, teams that run, especially in the later rounds, you only want to get like you're drafting for carries on running backs and then roster spot. Like who's going to see the field? Like in the later rounds, good to have. So then, obviously, that's all my stats from last year. Everyone's changed coaches, players have changed teams. So I tried getting all this, like, skew the mathematics to figure out what it would be next year and then translate that to what these players would do this year. Anyway, and other things, too. So I tried seeing, like, I think what makes Rob Gronkowski so valuable is that he's so much better than the other tight ends. So I tried getting things like differentials. Anyway, long story short, I got way too deep into it. Nothing I have is even remotely usable, and I'm just going to be doing what I usually do, which is print out the Yahoo best players available. But now, I know what I know, and I know too much right now. But
see, you're a vault of information. But what you said is useless.
Completely useless.
And you're in the black hole with Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, I'm in the black hole. He was doing some weird shit in there. Yeah, he was like pushing around the gravity of the whole world.
Anyway, I think. Yeah, we just a bit extreme, and again, this is a fantasy football for dummies. You don't want to necessarily start with that intense. You know, you've been around, you're a pro, you've been this for a while, so you don't want to jump in with the team depth charts. That being said, I think it could help. I think obviously, the crux of fantasy football is this. It's loading up on receivers, running backs. If I had to tell one person one piece of advice for fantasy football, it's load up on receivers, load up on running backs, because those are your bread and butter guys who are going to give you the points. Yes, you can have a top quarterback like Andrew Luck, like an Aaron Rodgers, but if you don't have two running backs, three receivers, like that's how our league is, you're not going to score points, you're not going to win.
In the end, 90% of the leagues, you're only getting one quarterback anyway. So you pick one guy. Most of the top 10 are pretty close to each other, honestly.
Very. And I was reading something interesting that said, back in the day, if you had a running back, the average amount of points, they score 6 touchdowns a year, and they're sharing carries, they're getting 15 touches a game. You wouldn't, in a fantasy draft, you wouldn't touch those running backs until mid-rounds. Those running backs now, are going in the first round, the first couple of picks. That's because the NFL has changed, and fantasy has to change according to the NFL. You have running backs who are you're in a committee, you're going to do, a little bit of blocking, a little bit of pass catching, you get 15 carries, and if you get 6 touchdowns from the guys, you'll be happy. So that's the league you're in. You're paying a premium price to get the guys who that's the higher end of touches is 15 touches and 6 touchdowns.
And that's how it's changed a lot. So back in the day, so they say the really old school strategy is you go running back, first 2 rounds. Back then, if you went in whatever it is, I guess they probably didn't have fantasy football back then, but if you went years and years ago, 10 years ago, let's say, if you went running back, first 2 rounds, you're getting 2 studs. You're getting 2 guys who are getting 30 carries a game.
Workhorses. You're getting 30 carries.
2 workhorses. Yeah. You're getting LT and probably Frank Gore. Whatever.
You're getting bell cows, guys who are getting the rock no matter what.
Nowadays, you go running back, you can actually very well wind up with nothing. I think, so for example, our friend Goose last year, Mike Ragusa, a friend of the podcast, not a contributor. He went last year, I think he went 2 running backs in a row. He went Monty Ball and DeMarco Murray. Right. And we all called that the Murray pick because Murray's going to get hurt. He's not going to get a ton of carries in Dallas. And we all
never was the bell cow, right.
And we all thought Ball was going to be a good pick. Anyway, turns out the opposite. Murray was best player in the league. Ball was irrelevant by week 3.
It's a fantastic point. Point. Murray would have been the number 1, probably consensus.
If you redrafted.
If you redrafted last year and going into this year, if he didn't switch teams, going from the great O-line in Dallas to now in Philadelphia's O-line, which is kind of iffy at best. Monte Ball now might be the 3rd running back on the depth chart with Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson ahead of him in Denver, and he's an afterthought now. So that's a great point. So you're paying a premium price for running backs who don't give you the same production or very few give you the same production as running backs like Gene said, 10 years ago. What do you see from a guy like LT or Sean Alexander, guys, Priest Holmes, guys like that? You're getting half the production on the field of what you normally would expect, and you're wasting a top 5 pick. You're wasting probably your 2nd round pick, a 3rd round pick. Because if you're not going running back, you're not getting your 2 starters in the first 4 or 5 rounds. You're going to be hurting bad. You have to find that waiver wire stud that comes out of nowhere, because if you don't have those guys, you're not going to last.
So in theory, the running back class now is a lot weaker. So in theory, you think, okay, it's weak. I'm just going to go with the better players. You really can't if you do that, because it's weak, but it's weak throughout. So it's proportionally weak. There's the strong guys at top, and they're probably not even. And I think right now, receivers is stronger than it's ever been.
We're right now in
best receiving.
Another great segue.
So you could take your receivers. Era. Yeah. The thing is, if you don't take running backs, you got nothing.
I'm not saying don't take a top guy, a top receiver like a Beckham, like Megatron, like Antonio Brown, guys like the top end guys. I'm not saying pass on them because there's so many. If you can get a top guy like that, take them because they're going to help your team out. But the thing is, you can find guys way than the list of like
the receivers are really strong.
Right.
So it's it's actually you think okay, running backs are weak, run them later. Receivers are strong, take them early. Opposite actually, because running backs are so weak, you need to get someone who's going to give you something. You're
going to always find a receiver. You're not always going to find a running back. And if you're waiting until the fourth, fifth, sixth round for a running back, you're going to get guys who are the second running back, who are possibly the third running back, who get less than 10 touches a game, guys who don't catch footballs. And if you don't catch in our league, PPR, it hurts you big time because you need those guys like Alfred Morris. Great, it hasn't not eclipsed 1,000 yards the past, I believe, like 3 seasons or so. The guy has stone hands. He doesn't catch the ball. So it doesn't really help you in our league like ours, where you need.
He's got to have a great game for you to get anything.
Right. So you're going to miss out on the top end guys who catch the ball, who do a little bit of everything, and that hurts you. So I mean, yeah, we're saying take running backs and receivers early, but the real emphasis is on the running back because if you're skipping out running backs in the top couple rounds, you're not going to get a guy to help your team out. You need to get at least one stud that you can rely on, and that's what fantasy is about. It's about consistency. It's about relying on your team. You're drafting for the guys who get the most amount of points every single week. That's how you win. That's the keys of the game, is get the most amount of points every week. And the only way you're going to do that is if you get a running back who's on the field getting touches. That's just the simple math.
Well, that's and then the one helpful thing I got from like black hole studies and like deep in the pits of like the stats the NFL doesn't want you to know about is that it's the big thing, the key to everything, and this is why guys like we're talking about running backs and receivers. Very valuable guy, Rob Gronkowski, because the big thing you need is the differential. You don't want to score the most points. The key is you just want to score more points than the guy you're playing.
Yeah,
that's it.
A fraction.
Just like that's it. So you got to get a guy who's going to give you an advantage. So like Rob Gronkowski right away against a lot of tight ends in the league, he's giving you plus like 10 points.
That's a good point.
And another thing, so if you're not taking your running back, so we're going to even back to the running backs. If you're not taking one early, you're going to be giving up an advantage. Almost everyone has a good running back, so you're going to be giving -5 on running.
You're right, because you're essentially saying is what he's saying is if we'll use Gronkowski, we'll revisit Gronk, but to say you're taking Gronk, which means that no one else has him, which means you're not getting the point of production.
You're going to automatically get also since no one else has him, so he's leaps and bounds above every tight end.
Sure.
You're automatically. It's like playing every week +10 with a +10 handicap.
You're right. That's a great point, and we'll revisit that later. With where you value guys, that's a big segment that I definitely want to get into. Just to find out Gene's secrets. No, but to get back to the the top end of the draft thing. So running back receivers, that's where you want to go early. The next. That next tier of what you're thinking about, where should I go? It's probably going to be quarterback and tight end. And you mentioned Gronk. It's Gronk and there's everyone else. I mean, you could throw in Jimmy Graham, new team. Russell Wilson to me is not Drew Brees.
And they're not going to throw the ball as much at all.
And then that's very true. And then you have the other option to go around those middle rounds is quarterback. There's really no other position you could take there. Defense and kicker. I don't even want to spend time on. I don't even draft them. I just go by week matchups, which is another great tip to keep down. So write that down. Kicker, defense, week-by-week matchups. Some people draft defenses way too early. I don't see the point. The number one fantasy defense going into the season has never, ever finished first at season's end. So
the one thing I'll say about kickers is that kickers. No one cares about kickers. No one's kicker stats.
Connor Barth was ranked number 1 by most magazines and websites. He was just cut by the Broncos and just re-signed today. That shows you how much they.
That's what I was going to say. It's a tip, and I'm throwing it out here because I've announced this like tip every year in fantasy. I always draft Denver's kicker because the thin air there, they're going to kick more long field goals, get more points for that. There you go, some wisdom. They're going to kick more long field goals. So whatever. Moving on. No more time spent on kickers.
Yeah, I can't argue with that though. So the next, like I said, Gronk is everyone else and him. With quarterbacks, the top 2. I mean, you can flip a coin. It's Rodgers and Luck. They're at a tier. The next tier, though, is where I'm kind of intrigued to see maybe where you have some people place. Now, you look around, it's Peyton Manning, it's Drew Brees, And then it's a whole lot of question marks because do you throw Tom Brady in there? He's going to be suspended. Well, is he going to be suspended? Who knows? Then you have other guys like can be Cam Newton's year. Finally, he does run the ball. Is Russell Wilson? Has he done enough on the field to promote himself into that next level? Again, Gene just said they don't throw the ball a ton in Seattle. So, the running quarterbacks always intrigue me. But then you see guys like Colin Kaepernick, who was a running quarterback, and he, regressed significantly. So I don't know who you have in the next level. RG3. In RG3 again, abysmal year. So I don't know if you're one of those guys who loves the Tom Brady there, and maybe I think his suspension won't really affect him or it'll decrease. Do you love the running quarterbacks that much? Do you want to put them in that next tier underneath Luck and Rodgers, or do you want to stick with the pure pocket passers? And do you still trust the old guys like Breeze and Peyton Manning?
I still trust Breeze. They're gonna air the ball out a lot. He throws a lot of picks, but I think I personally think Breeze will have a bounce back year. He
led the league in a lot of stats last year.
He led the league in passing. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he did.
Ben Roethlisberger is another guy. I think after Luck and Rodgers, I'd probably go back. I'd probably say Ben Roethlisberger.
Right, you're a big man three.
Big year for him. Peyton's a little iffy because of the injuries and stuff like
39.
that. Yeah, and old.
Lost Julius Thomas. Lost Les Walker.
Right. Lost a lot of
tore his quad at the end of the year.
Yeah. So, things aren't looking too good for Peyton Manning. I would still probably say you could trust him. I would probably go him after Roethlisberger and Breeze. And then, this is where you're really getting into, shady territory.
You're right off. You're telling me you don't really trust the running quarterback, the dual threats.
I think of the dual threats, I think the only one who I would trust would be Cam Newton. But I don't like Cam Newton right now after Kelvin Benjamin went down. That was his only target. Kelvin Benjamin, I think, was top 5 in targets last year, just because no one else there to throw. I think number 2 was Jericho Cotchery or something like that.
They're on the team, Now they drafted Funches, and they have Greg Olsen too.
Yeah, they have Greg Olsen. So, but no one else. So they're going to stack. So the running isn't even going to be as big because they're going to stack the box. There's no one's going to get double coverage. They're going to be able to put a guy in to spy Cam Newton.
Right.
So I would have liked Cam Newton this year. I would have liked it. I would have said this is his year, but.
That's what everyone says every year. This is going to be Cam Newton's year. We're still waiting.
Rescind on that statement. I think he's going to have a very down year without Benjamin. So then, my kind of theory on quarterbacks, and I think you either have to be the guy who gets the first quarterback. You either need to get the Rodgers or the Luck, or
then wait till the run's over.
Or you just wait until the run's over. You take who's left because I think they're all just about even. You stock up on running backs and receivers, like we said, and then you get the last guy. And honestly, so the guy in our league always does that. That's always Eric, and that strategy in particular usually works out for him pretty well. I think last year he wound up with
Romo, I think.
So Romo didn't have a great fantasy year. He had a great, but he also wound up with Romo a year or two earlier. We had a great fantasy year, but. I think especially this year in particular, I think after Breeze. So I've said even after Breeze. So I'd say you should go Roethlisberger and Luck. I'm not Roethlisberger, Rodgers and Luck. Yeah. Those two. Then I would say it's Breeze and Roethlisberger. Then it's really all a wash. Peyton Manning is probably the best of that group, but it's still a lot of question marks. Well, guys like Eli Manning. I think you could say Eli Manning with Beckham, West Coast offense.
He had a great year last year.
Very good year last year.
Yeah, don't get a lot of credit. He had 30 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. You had him. You have Phil Rivers. He's been very consistent the past few years. Usually had some pretty good years in there. So I think your best.
So you're really devaluing a lot. You're really low on a lot of these quarterbacks.
I wouldn't even say I'm low. I would say that I'm not very high. I'm not particularly high on any of them. But I don't think that it's differential. I don't think there's any differential between most of them.
There's not.
I think they're so even. You might as well just take stack up on running backs and take the last one.
Well, there you go. Another good point for the dummies listening. Write this down. Is that if you're not going to be the guy to take one of the top 2, load up on running backs, load up on receivers, and you take one of the other quarterbacks who are just like all the rest of the quarterbacks that the other 8 teams your league will have. So.
Right. So I think Luck and Rodgers are worth it because of the differential, but then after that, no one's pulling ahead enough.
So you don't see a guy being a third. You don't see a real third great option.
I'd say Roethlisberger. I like Roth. So I say you should stack up. But if you should either aim for Luck or Rodgers or take the last one. But if you want to take Breeze or you want to take Roethlisberger pretty high, I wouldn't say exceptionally high. I wouldn't say second round, but 4th, 5th round, go right ahead.
Because our league has been full of runs. I'm not sure if it goes for every league, but our league is the minute the first quarterback is taken, and then you see the team start to panic, and then everyone goes in panic and takes a bunch of quarterbacks.
Well, no one wants to be the last one with the quarterback. The one who always was always Eric,
right.
And that's why Eric has waited until people have taken their backup. He doesn't take a quarterback until someone drafts their backup.
Right. Yeah, that's. I mean, I'm not sure. Again, all leagues.
I'm not sure that's always the right way to go.
But you don't it's not. I mean, I think there's a time and place. There's a guy. I'm always a fan of this theory. Is that if there's a guy you want, go get him. Like if there's a guy you really like, go get him. So if you like Russell Wilson going this year because he has the dual threat, he has a lot of 300-yard passing games, 100-yard rushing games. What he does at the quarterback position is incredible. He has a new weapon now, a new toy in Jimmy Graham, who Drew Brees is so pissed off about the whole offseason. He's tweeting and saying stuff. Obviously, Jimmy Graham's a real talent at the position, and they're not going to know how to. No one knows how to cover him. No one in the red zone, like you know for a fact that his touchdowns will go up. I mean, Russell Wilson, that is his TD account will go up because of having Jimmy Graham. He understands the offense more. You can see that last year, even during the playoffs, he's doing way more. He's just a more cerebral player. You trust him to defeat in fantasy. You got to love that. A rushing touchdown from your quarterback is great. The rushing yards count as points too. So everything he does is going to help you. I'm a big fan of the running quarterbacks. I did take a gamble a couple years back on Colin Kaepernick. Not the best year.
No.
Last year I did have Aaron Rodgers, and I used his MVP season to ride me into the playoffs, and it was great. So every time you take a quarterback who's that good, and like Gene said, the differential helps you. You could ride their coattails all the way to the playoffs. But I just so happened to draft a pretty decent team as well. Now, if you draft a team, a roster full of running backs and receivers who stink, I don't care what Andrew Luck, I don't care what Aaron Rodgers does for you. They're not going to help you.
The thing about a running quarterback that makes them kind of appealing is the same reason you like a running back who catches the ball, because they don't need to have as good of a game to give you the points. Exactly. So, like a rushing touchdown's worth 6, whereas a passing touchdown's worth 4. Yep. So, you get 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown. It's better than 2 passing touchdowns. So 2 passing touchdowns is a great game, but 1 and 1 is not terribly exciting.
Right.
But you trust a guy, and rushing yards are worth, I think, twice as much or 4 times as much as a passing yard or whatever. I think it's passing yards are a quarter
point
for every 10.
It's a quarter for every completion. Yeah.
Yards. I think
it's every 25. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
something like that. And
rushing
is
10.
So they're worth about 2.5 times.
We're on Yahoo for those who are wondering.
Yeah. Whatever. Then I get into the math. I've done enough math with fantasy football. No more math. That's why.
Another great point. I mean,
if we're gonna get to the specifics, so I said what I said about Cam Newton. I think Benjamin kills him this year, kills his value. Kaepernick, I think the Niners are gonna be abysmal.
They're gonna be bad.
The one thing that can even possibly be good for him is I think their defense is going to be so bad that maybe they'll just air the ball. They'll just air the ball out every play. So maybe, but then that takes away from his running. He's not going to run every play. But who knows? I don't want. I would stay away from the 49ers.
There's a good argument to make that every dual threat quarterback has a really bad situation. Whether it's RG3, it's Cam Newton losing out on Benjamin.
Well, except for Russell Wilson.
Except for Russ Wilson, which is why Russ Wilson is ranked the number 3 quarterback for most places I've seen. But I still feel like
I don't think
our league is going to fall in love with him because we're wary on quarterbacks until the run happens. Mm-hmm. But I feel like Russell Wilson, he's been a lot of people liked him going into last year, and he was still pretty low value wise for our league. I'm not sure other leagues. Yeah, their guys might love him. Like, you need to remember our league has been doing this for a very long time, and they're all. You just heard Gene in the beginning of this podcast saying he's into a black hole of math doing this. We all care about this at all. The bragging rights and the trash talking and all that amongst each other is what really drives us. And we take our time. And Gene's been doing this since July, and it's already the end of August. So, like I said, we sometimes think too much into it, which might not be a good thing. But if you think too much into it, you might psych yourself out and saying, "I don't want to take Russell Wilson because of X, Y, Z." And that's, I think, what happened to us last year in this draft. And I think it could happen again this year's draft. Russell Wilson ranked number 3 quarterback for a lot of places. I don't think most of us will have him ranked as the 3rd best quarterback going into this draft on Sunday.
I still like Ben Roethlisberger. Well, I'm getting to my rankings, but I still like Ben Roethlisberger and Breeze. I'm just not a big fan of Russell Wilson from a talent standpoint. Even from the day he came, I thought he was a very, very effective quarterback, very good game manager.
He was the best game manager in the NFL.
The question, I think, changes for me a little bit. Did he sign a contract this offseason or
massive one?
Then here's one thing that goes for him, because I wasn't sure if he signed it or if he was they're going to let him go. He couldn't sign it, he's got to go, but whatever. They might let him just air the ball a lot just to justify the contract in some ways. But I mean, in a way, you can't you never know. Our coach is really going to be thinking about that. But I mean, I'd say that's one thing that might be going for him is I think he's going to pass a little bit more. But in the end, I still think at heart, Seattle's a running team.
Yeah, that and Jimmy Graham. But you're right. Yeah, I mean,
and Jimmy Graham.
And I mean, we've never seen a great statistical passing season from Russ Wilson. It's been a very balanced. What he touchdowns were, in mid to low 20s, and he's had, his yards is way less than guys like Big Ben, way less than guys like Peyton Manning and Drew Brees, and so on and so forth.
Well, this will be the year. I think if he really, I think what makes a good quarterback.
He's never had a weapon like this. So.
He's never had a weapon like this, but who's their best wide receiver? It's
a good question.
I'm pretty sure it's Doug Baldwin.
You ask that question to 500 people, you might get 5 different answers.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, I mean, I think what makes this is going to be the defining year for him because what makes a quarterback great is that they can get by with less than, subpar talent. Mm-hmm. Who was T.Y. Hilton before, Andrew Luck got
mid-round pick from, FIU?
Exactly, yeah. Might have even been Was he D1?
No, I think he was
FIU?
Florida International, Florida Atlantic.
Oh, no, I'm thinking of Pierre Garçon was also in the Colts. He was D3. He went to, Mount Union, but whatever. Pierre Garçon played with Peyton Manning. Right. Just amazing season. And that's why I don't think the Jordy Nelson injury is going to hurt the Packers. It's going to kill fantasy owners, but he's not going to hurt the Packers that much because Rodgers is going to turn some guy off the street into a 1,000.
Oh, you're right. That's a good point. We should get into that too.
So we'll see that with Russell Wilson this year. If he can get by with this receiving core, I think he'll be a top 2 quarterback every single year going forward.
This year.
But I don't know.
A large part of this year will Russell Wilson slide? Will somebody take a gamble on him? Will someone reach and will he burn them, or will someone let him slide and they take him in the later rounds? Later rounds in terms of where the quarterbacks are going, and they have a guy like you said who's a top 2 quarterback, and then you look at your team earlier on just stacking up on running backs and receivers, and you get Russell Wilson in the 5th, 6th round. That's a pretty good team right there. Right. So that's a huge thing. It's one of the biggest question marks coming into this is who is really the third quarterback, the next quarterback up after Luck and Rodgers, and we kept mentioning injuries, whether it's Cam Newton with Kelvin Benjamin, or it's Aaron Rodgers with Jordy Nelson. We didn't mention Arian Foster's name yet, and unfortunately, the third preseason game hasn't happened yet. There might be more, and it's
been a very bad preseason.
It's been awful, and I
haven't got any defensive players either. We're just talking
a ton of defensive players. We don't do the IDPs or anything, and we're very fortunate that our draft is this upcoming Sunday, so it's very late in the season. But the thing about this with the injuries are you can get injured whether it's in the OTAs, you can get hurt in your house, you can get hurt in week 1. It doesn't really matter when the injury happens. The injuries will happen. It's the NFL. It's a violent sport. This is what happens. You have to do preseason games. I hate the people who say, no preseason games. What are you going to do? Throw them on the field week 1? Just say, okay, you have at it. You haven't seen
they'll get
have any reps. You need to have reps. You need to see game types.
You're seeing all these players get hurt right now, and they're playing very limited snaps. They're getting into shape. Because the thing is, they're going onto and they're all getting hurt now because they're going onto the field with just nothing, cold.
And a lot of
they're getting knocked out.
A lot of these injuries, there's nothing you could do about it. They weren't a contact injury. Jordy Nelson made a cut in his knee, and he walked up the field. No one thought he was that bad. He was going to get MRI. I thought he'd be okay. And unfortunate things happen. So, I don't want to break down the injury and should we have preseason or not. That's not what this podcast is for. It's about to help the dummies out there who are drafting soon. But, the players that these injuries happen to are big-time players. Arian Foster could have been a first-round pick. Jordy Nelson, top 10 receiver easily. Kelvin Benjamin, same thing. Possibly a little bit higher than Jordy Nelson because, he's
so many targets.
Target for Cam Newton. I don't even know where to start with this. We could say, I guess we'll ask you, which guy of those 3, the big 3, and hopefully there's no more, which one do you think was going to have the biggest season? Which guy were you targeting before this happened? That you thought I need this guy for these reasons?
So I think it's unfortunate what happened to Arian Foster because I think a lot of people were already thinking, he's getting older, he's going to break down.
Pretty good year,
and he's been playing pretty well. He's kind of been avoiding it, avoiding the Reaper for the whole time.
And it's a weak running back class too. So
weak running back class. He could have been
the ball does it all for a PPR. He's very
definitely could have been a big help to a lot of teams, but. I think the best bet. I think Jordy Nelson was going to have a huge season. He plays for the Packers. He's the best receiver on the Packers.
Ton of targets, 150 plus.
Exactly. He's aired out a lot. So I think it would have been nice to have Foster. I think Jordy Nelson would have had the best year. Mm-hmm. So I think he would have been the guy like you would have wanted. I think Kelvin Benjamin could have won a lot of people their league because I think he was kind of a sleeper this year a little bit. I think kind of on the border of a 1 and 2 receiver, and I think he was really primed to have a big breakout year this year. Honestly, I think because I think a second year in the system. He's huge. Very dynamic, great player all around, just very good. And I think Cam Newton with another year with him, more chemistry. I mean, he did that all last year as a rookie. And imagine with another year under his belt with Cam Newton, another year of chemistry, he would have been a big breakout player. But
I agree.
So
I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, you were pretty positive about all three of them, and I wasn't really down on any of them. I mean, are you going?
Foster would have been a little.
Foster's a guy who you take and you go, I hope he doesn't hurt me. And I mean, 2 years ago I took him and he hurt me. Last year I stayed away from him and he had a great year. I mean, he's never healthy. He's never fully healthy, but he does perform and he really is the only guy. I mean, his backup, I believe, was like Alfred Blue, who's never really established himself.
He's the new Maurice Jones-Drew. Every year you think about it, it's like it shouldn't be a gamble. Like you think, oh, it's a gamble. You're taking Maurice Jones-Drew. It's like it shouldn't really be a gamble. He's just been very consistently good every year. But he's always banged up, so he has up and down games, and you're always worried about the wear and tear.
Yeah,
so,
and he's only 29.
And like you see, Maurice Jones-Drew fell off the cliff one year.
Big
time. And you're afraid of that happening with. You're afraid of it happening with Foster, and in some ways you're afraid of it happening with Lynch, but I think you kind of ignore it with Lynch because the class is so bad,
right?
And he's usually so good.
That's what it is too. The running back, the draft class is terrible. So a guy like Foster's value is way higher than it really should be,
right?
5
years ago, Foster and Lynch would be like late first round picks, maybe second, and they would produce pretty well. And I'm confident they'll both produce very well.
Yeah,
but there will be a lot of people thinking they'd rather not take the risk on Foster and Lynch and take a better running back.
Right.
Nowadays, you're like, listen, he's here. He's going to produce really well. He's a running back. I got to take him.
And we value him a ton, too, because they both catch the ball and we're in PPR. Mm-hmm. So you definitely are afraid of him. I mean, Jordy Nelson, I look at the amount of targets he has, and as a guy who had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback last year and seeing the numbers he puts up and thinking that a large majority of those numbers are going to Jordy Nelson, if you could somehow get Nelson on your team, maybe in the second round, mid-second round, have another
real stud receiver.
I mean, you're going to get a guy who's going to get a ton of points, a ton of looks. Rodgers, I mean, as much as he has Randall Cobb across from him, but Rodgers, his stats are so big that they find a way to give you both wide receiver one stats. So
right,
that's definitely a big one. Kelvin Benjamin, quickly on him, is that I was a little afraid of him in the sense that people are going to overpay for him because they're like, oh, he's the second year player. He was a great rookie, one of the best rookie receiver classes ever with him and Evans and Beckham. I was not going to overpay for him and take him in a late first, early second because again, you have to don't trust Cam Newton. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is with him is he had a good year. Let's see if defense adjust him, this and that.
Right.
Sometimes being the only target is not a good thing. Sometimes you want a guy to help you out.
Absolutely, definitely.
So I was a little weary of him. That being said, like he's a physical freak. He would have had a great season. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for Cam. It hurts Cam's value. I think it hurts the Panthers. The teams as a whole in the NFC South. Mm-hmm. So they're taking a step forward, and you have an injury to your second best player. It's a huge blow. So this role really shakes the whole fantasy landscape because now you have one less running back, and we said how important getting a running back early is, and you take out two top receivers who both could have been wide receiver number ones on teams. So again, we cannot stress this enough. You got to take receivers early. You got to take running backs even earlier and more often than you could take receivers. And now we have three big names off the board. So that's going to definitely hurt a lot of our draft Sunday and other drafts.
Well, I think it's more interesting about it. So obviously you're thinking okay, what's going to happen now with who's going to go higher now that Foster's gone, stuff like that. Within the teams, so I think Foster's pretty obvious now. Alfred Blue's a starting back. He's going to get drafted a lot higher. Mm-hmm. He's going to be looked at. Mm-hmm. Panthers I got into a little bit. I think Cam's going to have a very down year. You can think maybe one of the receivers could step up and maybe somebody.
They drafted Funches in the second round. He's a big body guy. It's to bet on a rookie again like that.
No one who I would really like. I mean, Greg Olson's numbers might go up a little bit, but I mean,
it's a tight end. I don't. Yeah,
and no one who I would really consider.
There's only tight end you really have to spend for. I think is Gronk.
Right, exactly. But I think the interesting one is the Packers because I think Rodgers is going to be unaffected. I think he will be unaffected. So, but that drives up Randall Cobb's value a lot. I think. He's not going to get so many big. And then you got to look at
Devontae Adams.
Devontae Adams, and then
that's a great question. Yeah, so I mean, ask how much do you value the replacements, or which replacements do you like, or which replacements do you hate? because I feel like it's an overrated thing to do. Is like the guy who's to say the guy stepping in that hole, whether it's Foster, Nelson, or Benjamin, will be nearly as effective.
Right.
It does not always what happens.
And I think in this case, simply what we get into right now, I think it's a little bit more clear. I don't whether it's Funches or anyone else, I don't think anyone stepping into that Panthers role is going to really
they won't put up Benjamin's
numbers at all. I think Blue is going to, I mean, they do that zone blocking in Houston still, I think. That's usually been pretty effective for running backs. Like Ben Tate had a few good years. But,
right.
I mean, am I going to take out for Blue High? No.
And who's to say that Blue won't be handcuffed on another running back, two more running backs. They might have a whole system committee thing going on.
Exactly. And then who knows, and Foster's only out, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks, something like that.
Right. Yeah, true. I never said that too. He does come back.
For the year.
He's not done for the year. Like Benjamin and Nelson after the year.
Yep.
Foster will come back. That's another thing too. We talk about value. We'll get to that later on though. But
so I think definitely the most interesting situation now is the Packers, because you have Cobb, I think, moves into the really elite receiver category. And then I think Devontae Adams, he can definitely step into the wide receiver 1-2 role. And then you got to look at all these guys who you pretty much like looking at for late rounds, like the sleepers, like who would be the fourth target on the Packers, something like that. And now you got to think of them as, okay, they're going to get like Devontae Adams looks. They're going to be like maybe in the they're not bench players anymore. They're going to be possible starters for like your team.
And it's scary because who's to say again?
And who knows who's going to be?
Who's to say Devontae Adams if it's him? That's the name that everyone's throwing out now. Who's to say that he's worth drafting rounds way earlier than you should?
Right.
And who's to say that he's going to even give the production or a fraction of the production that a guy like Nelson would? So you're thinking of all these things. You don't know who. Aaron Rodgers fell in love with Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb for a reason. You don't know if he'll fall in love with throwing the ball to Devontae Adams at all. I mean, they have a tight end. They have Quarles. He might get more targets. They might throw to the backs more. Eddie Lacy, is a stud, and he can get 30, 40, 50 catches this year. You don't know the scenario is going to happen without having Jordy Nelson on the field. In a perfect world, it's easy to say, yes, Devontae Adams steps in and it will be good, but yeah.
Which is why I think the Packers situation is so interesting, because I think Kelvin Benjamin going down is going to hurt Cam Newton, which means there's less to go around for everyone. Aaron Rodgers is still going to get his.
They still have targets, and he's
still going to get his.
Right.
And we got to see where those targets are going now. Like, so he's going to or all that, because so I think on the Panthers, Kelvin Benjamin's production is going to disappear or just decrease completely. The production for the Packers is still going to be on the field with Jordy Nelson. It's our job now to find out where it's going, which is going to be real, which is what makes it so interesting, because there's going to be it's going to be Cobb just having a huge year, Adams going off a lot, or there's just going to be a lot of guys who, if it's not Adams stepping up into a real true fantasy wide receiver 2 role, there are going to be 3 or 4 guys who are starting receivers on that team, starting fantasy receivers, or Lacey's going to have an amazing year where he's going to get, in the end, Rodgers still going to get his, and you just got to find out where it's going to go now.
Right, and it's good. Start this out topic coming up right now is the whole value thing. Where do you rank guys? They are overvalued, undervalued, and where you project them going. And Devontae Adams is the name where I was going to throw out in the list. So, I mean, we kind of talked about him already in terms of value, but in terms of where you're drafting him, his draft position, I'm sure his ADP has skyrocketed in the past couple of days, unfortunately, or fortunately for him. But let's say this. Let's say your team you took 2 receivers. Are you going to draft Devontae Adams as your wide receiver 3, expecting a year, or do you not trust him enough and you want to take him as a flyer, as an extra bench guy?
Devontae Adams?
Right.
Well, with Nelson, I kind of saw him as a 3/flex. So 3 would be pre-injury. I'd say
even with Nelson starting,
more of a flex, a low end 3 or flex, something like that. So we do 3 receivers and a flex.
Right.
I would definitely say I would say he was still starter, because Packers, they're just
right.
I guess what kind of hurts.
The thing is, who was the number 3 Packers receiver last year, or something?
Devontae Adams, I thought. Or was Cobb out? I don't know.
No. But I'm saying, but was he a guy you still targeted as your wide receiver 3 or as your flex? I would
say flex is where you would kind of get him. You would probably say a 4th wide receiver. But would you draft? I would say.
But now going this year with Noah Nelson,
I think
you have 2 receivers you're pretty happy with, right? And you see Devontae Adams still on the board. It's the middle round. It's round 7, let's say. With your 2 receivers there, do you go take Devontae Adams in round 7 or 8, draft him as a starter?
Yeah, well, he's going to be the so he was a borderline, like I said, he was borderline starter, so 3 flex, and even like, okay, maybe a lot of, flex is weird because, more people are starting running backs. If I say he's around a flex, maybe he's not necessarily a flex, depending on the team, whoever took more running backs. I would say you definitely take him there right now. I mean, I know you're maybe not, like, you don't know what's going to happen with him, but he's going to be a second wide receiver on a very good team. So maybe he's not going to put up. So let's say Randall Cobb was the 2 last year, so he's not going to put up Randall Cobb numbers.
He was the 2, but he's very close to
right, number 1.
Being the 1.
So what you're kind of hoping for, I think honestly what you're kind of looking at right now is like you kind of want him to be a low-end 2, Devontae Adams. So if you're taking him as your 3, I think that's kind of above where his value. As your 3rd receiver, yes.
Okay.
If you're taking him as, I think you see him as a wide receiver. So like we said, so Nelson and Cobb were both wide receiver 1s last year. If you're doing that, you're nuts. You're lost.
Right.
But if you want to take him as a 2, that's a real gamble. You can do it, but I mean, I wouldn't. There's so many very deep receiver classes always.
Right.
I think as a 3, you're in the clear. I think if you're taking him as a 3, it's fine. If you have 2 you're already happy with, and there are no running backs you want on the board, then if it works, if it fails, he's a low end 3. Even not. I mean, if he's a low end 3, he had to really fail. I don't think you can expect him to really fail. Like it can absolutely happen.
No, he'll contribute, but
right.
But so it's
if he winds up as the number 2 receiver on the Packers right now, if he winds up as a low end 3rd receiver, which is then he just fucked up. Really, like, there's no other way to put it. Honestly, like, he blew it. But if he perfect world, everything ends up perfectly, he's a borderline number 1 receiver, like Cobb was last year. But I mean, I think what you can expect from him is to be a low end 2. So if you're taking him as your 3rd, you're good.
All right, so Gene, later, every single possibility for Devontae Adams next year. My quick response to that would be I just feel, and you kind of touched on it, is that receiver is so deep this year. I feel like if you can find 3 guys to fill in your starting roles, then you probably did something wrong. The fact that you have to rely on a guy like Devontae Adams, an unknown. For that spot, if you have 3 receivers, you want to take a flyer on them in a middle to late round, sure, go for it. But again, I'm just not part of that whole team that says the guy who's filling in this role will be just as good as the guy who was previously there. That's the only thing I'm a little skeptical on.
Well, it's it's safety versus taking a fly versus gambling. So I think the thing is, so if you're looking at your number 3s, you're taking it. There are plenty of guys who are they're going to be a good wide receiver 3. Technically, so you're not even filling in. So technically, Adams brings in the potential that he probably won't be as good of a wide receiver 3, but the potential to be as good as if you said he's going to be if you're saying he's going to be as good, that makes him a wide receiver 1.
Right.
If you're you go the average in there, wide receiver 2. So I think it's up to the gamble. It's like it's up to you if you want to go safe versus take the gamble. But to me personally, I think the gamble's worth it. But in this particular case, but.
So another guy I wanted to hit on was Arian Foster. Like you said, he comes back week 6. So the injury things is very interesting, or the suspension thing, because there's some other guys on this list that we have that are suspended. Arian Foster, say he comes back after week 6, so he'll be starting with you for, let's say, 12. It'll be 12. I'm not sure if there are buys in there, but let's say around if he misses 6 games, it's going to be 9 or 10 games. He'll play for you. Where do you value in this week running back availability? I guess we could say, where do you rank Arian Foster? Do you draft him at all? Do you want him late rounds? Or are you gonna be a guy who's gonna say running back is so weak, I want to go and spend an earlier pick than I should just to secure a guy who could do a lot of good things for me week 7 on?
Well, where did Josh Gordon go the other year?
That's a good question.
I think
did he go around 12-ish, around 12 for us?
Then
the hype of him alone, 'cause he didn't play. The hype of him alone,
Josh
got
Gordon.
him there, and he was cut and then re-signed, and he ended up not. Yeah, the hype alone.
Josh Gordon.
Yeah, the thing is with Foster,
Josh Gordon
Foster's
at one point was full season,
right?
And when we the weird thing was when we drafted him at around 12, he was that year. I remember what was going on because we drafted early. We weren't sure he was either going to get the suspension fully rescinded or he was going to miss. Everything was up in the air. Full season suspension gone, quarter, something like that. Whatever. He got cut because it turned out he was missing the full year. Then they changed the NFLPA, something like that. And then he wound up 10 games. I would say that's now with that all, I forgot about that whole thing happening. Now that kind of ruins what I was thinking with Foster. So anyway, let's say that around 12, probably even a little earlier. Because if you knew Gordon was missing 8 games, you would probably say. But then again, Gordon was suspended, fully healthy, in shape, and Foster's going off of an injury. So, and then again, you're hoping 6 games with Foster. So I would say you go around 10. You definitely got to take him. It's a bad class. He's got to be taken. But I don't think you go anywhere high with him. I don't think you do anything where you're thinking Foster might be your starter.
So you're not going to take an early round flyer on him just to solidify a guy who can come and catch the ball, hopefully replicate what he did last year, just because the class is so weak.
At best, you draft him as like a running back 3. So I think at best.
Wow.
And that's I think it's.
See, I'm a little different than you. I value him a little bit higher than I would value a guy like Devontae Adams, because of the fact I've seen what Foster could do, and I know how bad this class is. So if I drafted running backs, or I wasn't happy with my running backs, or a lot of them went before, I didn't get my guys, and I go, I agree with you in the sense that taking him as a third running back, you definitely should have 2 starters before you take him. Right, but if you're not happy with him, you could take a guy who could potentially be a top 5 back from when he plays going forward.
Right.
And he can make up, again, the difference is if you have a guy, you have 3 running backs now that say, you want your starters in fantasy in our league, the scoring, I guess you want to go 15 points plus, 15 to 20 for a good average is where you want your running backs. If you're getting 3 running back starters who are going over 15 points per week, you have it made, and that's what you want. So Foster, I think, can come back and do that if he's healthy with his time off. So, not to give my draft sequence away, but I'm just going based on pure on value and need. And running back is the thing you need to have on your team, and I value the position a little bit higher than I do a receiver who is a bit of an unknown.
Right. Well, the one I kind of agree with that, because the thing is, what Foster's going to give you for the first 6 weeks. It's nothing. But then,
right.
Yeah,
he's on your bench. He's wasting a spot on your bench.
After that, so I think it's a little bit tough. The nature of the injury has me a little worried. It's because it's a groin injury,
right?
So you're kind of worried.
Running back,
and he's a running back,
not
so
just like a shoulder or something. Yeah, you're
right. Right, exactly. If it was, it's kind of like I think Mark Ingram missed like 5 games last year with a broken hand. So I'm like, all right, once he gets back, he's going to be back to killing again, and which is exactly what happened. But yeah, groin injury is a little tough. I think I remember a few years, like I see a lot. I think Steven Jackson had one a few years ago. I remember, and that killed me one season because he came back and he was just playing like crap.
No, it's very possible. Say on the running back train here, a guy who, again, this is probably the number 1 overall consensus pick if there was no suspension at all, and that's Le'Veon Bell. Now he's fully healthy, no injury concerns. He's in the prime of his career, no wear and tear to worry about. Plays in a great offense with Big Ben, who you love. Antonio Brown's a top receiver, but he's going to miss
2 games.
2 games, 2 games suspension, and then plus I believe his bye week is there too, so you don't get him until week 4. So you're missing.
His bye week's week 3.
It's week. No, are you sure?
No, I think no. You know what I think it was? I think when he had the 4-game suspension, it was going to be 4 games.
Yeah.
Week 5 bye week, so you wouldn't get him until week 6.
Week 6, yeah.
I think now you're going to get him for like weeks 3 and 4, out week 5 and then 6. So I think because the suspension was just brought down to 2 games pretty recently.
Okay, you're right. Yes, I'm not reading all information.
It's probably magazines.
Yeah, the magazines are all printed old. But the question with him is: do you draft a guy knowing you're going to get you have to probably waste a first round pick on him?
Oh, absolutely.
Are you okay with wasting a first round pick on a guy who's definitely giving you zeros and 2 weeks outside of his bye week?
Well, when it was 4 games, I think it was really it was 4 games at first. That was really a question. Like, do you do this?
Because it's a quarter of a season,
right? It's a quarter of the season, and you know what? It's strange because I think he's absolutely the number 1 back. I think 16 games, no question, Le'Veon Bell number 1 because he's so good at catching the ball. He's a great runner, prime of his career, 23 years old, fantastic. 2 weeks is really where it gets too weird, and then I think the real thing is. He could still go number 1 overall with missing 2 weeks.
It's very possible with our league. Yeah, we've seen the number 1 pick in our league has always been a shock, seemingly every year.
Yeah, I think
good. And I wouldn't hate it because I understand
that good.
Because you could make the argument that if he gives you X amount of good weeks, say the 12, 13 weeks he's going to play. If he gives you top running back numbers, that should be enough to catapult your team into the playoffs because. According to math, all people like the sabermetrics of fantasy football. If you have one of the top running backs or top 3, 4, or 5 running backs every single week, like he could do, that's enough points to get you into that level. And then you're hoping that you could somehow draft well enough in the later rounds to find guys to fill in that role, get his handcuff, they signed D'Angelo Williams, get him later on, have him fill in that spot for the couple weeks that he's missing.
Right. So
you could argue that.
At 4 games, it's really a question. Like the first round thing is really a question. Do you spend a first round pick on him? At 2, it becomes a different thing. Do you spend like a top 3 pick on him? And I think I would. I think just because the class is so bad, I think missing 2. I think that what
that's what it comes back to as well.
It comes down
and he catches the ball in our PPR league,
right? Exactly. So I mean, who are your options at number 1 right now? It's Lacy. I mean. And I love Lacy. It's the top running. I mean, it's all the top running backs. It's safe.
It's Lacy, Charles, Forte. I guess you could throw Bell in there. You know what? I've seen Peterson's in the conversation for number 1. Sure.
Yeah.
Or if you want to go, receivers. I mean, I don't think receivers should go 1, but there's possibly
Antonio Brown
could go 1. You have Beckham. You have Demaryius Thomas. There's guys who could. Des Bryant.
What I'll say about
Luck and Rodgers.
And I don't know if you want to get this later. What I'll say about Brown going. So I said he's so consistent. It's like, you know what? You pay. That is a premium.
Well, I think he's part of this conversation because you love Roethlisberger. A lot of people do, and Brown's so good too. Their offense is inspiring. You know, the
clicking.
Offense, yeah. So you like that with Bell, and that helps his case to go earlier. So you think he can go 1, or
I think he can go 1,
top 3.
I say I mean, when I look at the top backs, I see. And I like Charles a lot, but I think he kind of wasn't used as much as he should have been last year. And Reed has like a thing.
No, but he's still effective, though.
I mean, at this point, we're nitpicking. Like I'm going to say right now, Eddie Lacy, Packers pass a lot. It's nitpicking. He's going to be a stud. But like if you're going down, it's like, all right, whatever.
No, for us, it's fine. It's PPR.
Nitpicking. Well, yeah, it's true. But and you think they get late in the games, they're always running up the score, and then it becomes just, okay, run up the middle, like 3 plays, kick it. Stuff like that. Like if you look at actual Rodgers' final stats are not like as good as you would think they were. Like he didn't blow anyone away with his numbers because so many times he left at halftime.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah. So again, like everyone, I think the only one who's really a safe pick at the top is Eddie Lacy, and I think you can argue Le'Veon Bell's better. Like you're gonna take Peterson coming off a year we didn't play, and on a team where I don't think wants him. I don't think he wants to be there either.
Right.
Lynch and Forte are in the same boat. Like, you kind of always kind of thinking, oh, is this the year they break down?
Right.
And Forte's going away from a guy who
he's obsessed with him. Yeah.
Obsessed with him. Set the record.
He was in the field for like 90-something% of the snaps.
Set the record for like most catches by a running back. So anything is possible. Whatever floats your boat, honestly.
So that your advice to the dummies is whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
No, so you
basically,
you,
yeah. I mean,
you said it. You said Le'Veon Bell. You could be taking number 1 overall, so you're fine with it. See, I'm fine with it. I'm a little weird because I can't justify having my first pick knowing he's going to miss minimum 3 weeks. You know, everyone's going to miss 1 week. That's fine. Everyone misses that week. So it's a wash. But he's missing 2 extra weeks. You won't have him. And who knows if I once lost out in the playoffs. I was 5th place. I lost it by a fraction of. It was the same amount of wins. It was by fraction of. It goes by points scored. That week, Le'Veon Bell could have made the difference, and I would have won. It was literally a fraction. So I have a problem with that. Maybe not 1. I could probably justify taking Bell 5 or later. That's where I could justify taking.
I think late first round he's a win because. So the problem with taking him that high is that your second round pick's not going to be as good because it goes back and forth. So if you get him. Ideally, the thing is you want to have a handcuff to Bell. You want to have another. You want to go if you're getting Bell, you got to go running back because you just got to have someone else there to like fill in the load for him. Because then if you don't, that means 2 weeks in a row you're going to be starting running backs.
Sure,
but if you get him at 5 or later, it's a win because you're going to pair him up with a very good running back behind him or like a real stud receiver, and then at week 3 you're going to have you're going to have like one of the best running backs in the game.
Well, that I agree with.
If you take him at 1 or like top 3, if you're playing with fire there, you're kind of hoping that he turns out to be as good as everyone says he is, as good as advertised. Because then you're going to have to pair him up with a kind of not quite a guy who might not definitely be a running back 1.
No, you're right. That's the conundrum you put yourself in. Right.
Not even definitely. He might even be the guy you get at the end of the second round might even be like a mid-tier running back 2.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Another guy I wanted to get into his value is another person who's suspended and was part of the story of the offseason, Deflategate, that's Tom Brady. And we said before, there's tiers of quarterbacks. Luck and Rodgers is one. I think most people would have Tom Brady in that tier 2 if he was not going to be missing games. Now he's given a 4-game suspension. I've heard rumors that it's going to go down to 2. I've heard it's going to go to 1. I've heard people say he's going to get the whole thing wiped away. Our draft's pretty late for people who do fantasy football. It's still not late enough to see what the actual outcome of this draft is because it's still legal proceedings awaiting us. So with quarterback the way it is, I know we said before it's very tight after the top 2 guys. It doesn't really matter who you take because you're all going to have relatively the same numbers. But are you on the camp that you think that Tom Brady's going to come out, let's just say he has a suspension, and it's after 4 weeks? With quarterback, the pool being pretty deep, and you can get a guy late to replace Tom Brady for those couple weeks. Are you part of the camp that thinks he's going to come out with a chip on his shoulder and just run up the score every single week he plays?
Well, honestly, I think second half of last season he really turned it on, but the beginning of the last season, he was not a good quarterback. Like, he was bad. He had some. So we were talking about how bad Joe's
Kansas City and stuff. Yeah.
He was awful. Fantasy wise. Like, I think he did well enough to a couple times win the game. I think they were 2 and 3. So I mean, they weren't playing great. They were always in it. I think.
Big difference between
fantasy
and fantasy quarterback. And,
Joe Flacco is he an elite quarterback?
Yeah.
But I mean, good enough for the Ravens. I mean, Tom Brady was good enough for the Patriots. But fantasy wise, crap, like awful, and that's how bad.
Especially going 10 teams, you want the better.
He was on Joe's team. Remember, he was like the biggest thing holding Joe down. Like, he was going weeks of like 8 points. Right. So I don't think as much. I mean, he won the Super Bowl, and it's impossible to say this, but in a way, you got to start looking at him in. I wouldn't say the same lens as Peyton Manning, but you're getting to that point.
Well, I think Peyton's a safer fantasy bet this year.
Oh, and absolutely. But I'm saying
even without the suspension,
the aging,
head to head, I would still take Peyton's fantasy numbers over Brady's.
Yeah. But I personally would not take Brady because for one thing, I think the idea of taking a quarterback. I think unless you're doing what I said and you're taking the last quarterback, and then let's say you're the team that's got around you're either picking 1 or you're picking last, and you get that wraparound pick. You go 2 quarterbacks in a row because I think my idea. Unless if you're the guy taking the last quarterback, you don't take Brady because I think the idea of taking a quarterback is you get one guy. You put most quarterbacks don't miss games at all, and if Jay Cutler misses 1-2 games, you're like, what the hell? He sucks.
Yeah.
You want your quarterback to. You don't want to draft. The thing is, you just don't want to draft a backup quarterback. You want to pick up the guy off the waiver wire on the bye week, and Brady's not going to give you that. I think with the legal proceedings the way they are, the things in court never take this short. And you think they got 2-3 weeks left before they got to go before the season starts.
About 2, yeah.
He's gonna miss a game just because the legal matter is not going to be finished before the games start.
I fully expect him to have the 4-game suspension.
I think so
at this
too.
point.
I think it would be.
And he's like you said, he's definitely missing 1 because within 2
I don't want to get into it, but I think I read somewhere he said he will accept the suspension, but he wants them to say it wasn't for Deflategate. I think he did it, and he's just he's just trying to cover his ass right now and say oh no, listen, I want to keep my image. I'll do the suspension, but say it was for obstructing the system and not for.
It's been the most frustrating story.
It's annoying. I don't even want to talk about it.
No, we don't have to. Surprisingly, as a guy who never, I don't think I've drafted a kicker or a defense the past 3 years running. This is probably going to be the 4th. I surprisingly would take Tom. All right, there's no way you can tell me if I'm in round 10, 11, 12, whatever. No one took Tom Brady. Everyone mostly has their quarterbacks or whatever. If I go take Tom Brady there, and 5 rounds later I go and take a guy like a Joe Flacco, an Eli Manning, a Colin Kaepernick, whoever else.
To take Brady, you got to be in a good position to get a backup right away.
Well, yeah, and to take a backup like that, who could serve a guy like Ryan Tannehill, right? And I forget, and people who have 12-team leagues, 14-team leagues, they have the same luxury that we have. I would say probably not because they have to. Those quarterbacks who I named probably will get taken.
Right.
We have the luxury of a 10-team league, so we get the top third of the quarterbacks. So some of those guys aren't going to be there. It won't be there as starters, and they'll slide down because they'll be either backups or just undrafted. So I would definitely do that if you're in the kind of position that I'm in. Or we're in, where you have the chance to take Tom Brady later on and get a really, really good backup, who some people even have as a sleeper starter this year. So I would definitely do that because I think he will come back and he'll light it up and throw 3-4 touchdowns a game and just run the score. And people, Belichick's going to hate teams.
Right.
Playing the Colts the first week back when he would come back from the suspension. So I trust him also because when the quarterback the pool and of that, if you're not taking Luck or Rodgers, if it's that close together, like we all think it is, Brady's the one guy who might be a little bit head and shoulders better than a guy like we mentioned, a Russell Wilson, a Cam Newton, Eli Manning, a Matt Ryan, a Tony Romo, all those guys, and then that group, Ben Roethlisberger, who you think might have a great season because he is Tom Brady. So if you're waiting on, you're waiting on a quarterback, you could go load up on receivers, you go load up on running backs, you're going to have a good team in the position that you need the most. Quarterbacks, you get those two guys. One of them will come in and be serviceable enough to move your team along and get you hopefully into the playoffs as long as the other picks you hit on.
I think you really hit the nail on the head there. If you're going to be the guy who waits on a quarterback, you might as well take Tom Brady. If you wait, if you're going in round 10 and you're like taking the 5th or 6th quarterback, I'd go with someone who's going to play. Is going to play all 16 games. But if you're going to wait until about round 10 and you're taking one of the last like 3 quarters, maybe one of the last 2-3 teams to take a quarterback, might as well. Yep, you stack up on running backs early. You get a guy who can be a stud and in week 5, and then you take a backup after him. Like at that point, you're just drafting carries, and you might as well just get a guy who's going to start for a good player who's going to start for a couple weeks. Start Tom Brady once he's back, and then he could be a stud. He could be what wins you your season. That's really all these things are. All these things, like when you're trying to find someone in the late round, these are the players who win you the season. Like someone like if you like what we were saying about Le'Veon Bell. If you're taking Le'Veon Bell top 3, he's not going to win you the season. Unless if he plays out of his mind, he's not going to be what wins you the league.
40 points a week kind of thing.
Unless he's not going to be what wins you the league.
They always say
he can lose you the league though.
You don't win the league in the first round, but you can lose it. You win the league in the middle rounds and the end rounds.
In the end, yeah.
We are going kind of long. It's about an hour, a little over an hour of this podcast already, so we'll wrap this up quickly. Right. Is there, before we end this discussion, we'll get on to your fun wrestling adventures. Is there any is a player that we have not mentioned with this, undervalue or overvaluing thing, or that you want to talk about that you think needs to be brought up on where you want to draft and where he shouldn't be drafted? Anything that really irks you or you fall in love with?
I'm going to go with love Antonio. Like I said, I love Ben Roethlisberger. I'm Ben.
Any Steeler.
I'm whatever. I'll be honest. Like I don't care too much about Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think he's close to Luck or Rodgers.
Yeah.
I love Antonio Brown. I think because even if in the end, let's say Calvin Johnson puts up a higher point total than him for the season, I think you take Brown because that consistency is such a premium. It's like if he goes 5, he hasn't had below 5 catches in 2 years for a game. He's gone 2 straight years without a single game below 5 catches. If he goes a game like 5 catches, 80 yards, that's a good game for anyone. That's a bad game for him. Every week he's like 5 catches, 100 yards, something like that. Just so consistent week in and week out. Love him. Players I don't like anyone involved in like this Eagles-Bills thing this offseason. So like the LaShawn McCoy trade to the Bills. I think he's going to get he's been declining. Everyone's seen it. He's going to the Bills, and I think some people are starting to get high on him and say, Rex ground and pound style. I'm not a big fan of their line, not a big fan of their quarterback. They're going to stack up the box, and I'm not a big fan of that situation right there. And then DeMarco Murray. So I think there's going to be the volume there, definitely. There's going to be a lot of carries with Chip Kelly, but I think the wear and tear bothers you. I mean, and like I said, there's been a year where running backs are devalued. Not even devalued. There's weaker, so you think that you want to take a guy like Murray because he was so good last year.
The scary thing with those things is that even you saying that, you have to still go in this draft saying, well, I still have to take DeMarco Murray, I still have to take LaShawn McCoy because of how weak the position is.
Exactly. But I think I would definitely shy away from those guys. Anyone else who I love? I think Beckham's going to go too high this. So I think Beckham's going to go too high.
I agree on that.
So I think what was honestly interesting, I think you said something before that Kelvin Benjamin was going to get pushed up because of the rookie class he was in. I kind of had the feeling of the opposite because the rookie class was so good. But I think the two clear-cut top guys were Beckham and Mike Evans. And I think kind of people would say, okay, he's the third best of those rookie receivers. So I think kind of in a way that devalues him. And I think another guy is going to get devalued by that is Sammy Watkins. I think you're going to see, okay, what... And I think people still...
He was the first one taken.
People still look at it a little bit like he was the first one taken, but he wasn't as good as Evans or Beckham. Right. So I think people are going to be down on that a little bit.
Especially with the situation at quarterback.
With the situation at quarterback, it's not good. But I mean, he was a very good fantasy player last year. Yeah. Trying to think about rookies right now.
Not very many rookies.
Not very many good rookies, yeah.
Maybe the 2 running backs again because they play running back.
Right, exactly.
Gurley used to know with his knee injury.
Well, Gurley...
They took him 10th for a reason, though.
You take a flyer on Gurley the very late rounds. Like, we do 18 rounds. Like, the standard league is 16. If Gurley's on the board after round 16, when most leagues already have their teams done, you take Gurley.
Right, sure.
No question about it. Gordon, I like. Gordon in San Diego. I mean, he's gonna get all the carries basically. Who else is there? It's
they got a lot. I mean, they have a lot of like
Darren Oliver or something like that. Like one
and Woodhead's back. Right?
Woodhead's back. So they're gonna get a lot of catches. Those two, and Oliver's like Darren Sproles light basically. Yeah. Can't think where else.
I get thrown. The only guy that I really was kind of torn on, and it's back to the running backs, is Adrian Peterson. And a lot of people said, "Oh, a year off, his body's gonna be so much, more fresh. He's gonna be healthy, fresh legs." And I feel like
mental situation. I feel
that is a big part. And I think also a year out of football isn't ultimately a good thing. I mean, I want to see guys on the field who's used to playing. Taking a year off, his body's not used to the hitting and stuff. I know he's a physical freak, but to me, a year of football isn't great. I mean, I don't know how many guys have left and taken a year off and come back. And he did play a game last year. I think he had like 7 yards rushing. But the other 15 weeks, that he missed, 16 weeks that he missed, he wasn't playing a game. I don't know. A lot of people think it's a positive. I don't think it's a positive. I believe he's like 30 years old now, 31 maybe. Mm-hmm. So his age is right at that point where you worry about running backs, when they fall off the cliff. So he's a guy that it's so scary. It scares me. But on the flip side, he's a guy who could go number 1 overall.
He could be the best running back.
And you have to take him early because he plays running back. Yeah. So that's just the weird thing that I'm not necessarily negative on or doubting him. It's just that I don't know what to do. So that's just a very weird situation going into this draft. Is there one piece of advice before we end this, the fantasy portion of this for our dummies? One piece of advice going into Sunday that you will have in your mind for our draft when we start doing our bingo board and your draft ball comes out and gives you what pick you have. What is the one thing that you are thinking about or want to accomplish or just have in mind when you're doing our draft?
What do you got to have in mind?
What do you personally think? What will you be thinking? What will you be focusing on for this draft? If you had to give a tip to somebody.
A tip?
They want to twist out a mind of a Gene DeMeo.
Stay thirsty, my friends. Here we go. We said it all the time. You got to running backs and receivers. Got to get them early, get them often.
Yeah. I guess my piece of advice for the dummies who don't know what to do and listen to this because they're desperate. It would just be, trust your research and then go with your gut. If you watch football enough and you think...
If you like a guy, get him.
If you like a guy, go after him and get him. If you think there's reasons why you should like him, you're, like you said, if I like them because XYZ and they run the ball a lot and I think they'll have a good year because of this O-line and all, then take their guy. Don't be afraid of don't... now, if a guy's his average draft position is not until the 10th round and he's ranked in the 100, don't take him in the first.
Right.
But be smart about it, and you take him when you want him. If you go around it too early, you go around it too early because if it pays off, you feel good about it. If you miss your guy, then you have to either give a ransom to trade for him, whatever. So I think going in the draft, there's a guy you like, you rank him, you do your own personal rankings and order them. And if you like a certain guy ahead, Gene talked about Ben Roethlisberger before. He wants Big Ben maybe as his number 3 guy. Who knows? So if that's how you feel, go and do that. And I think that could help you because you don't know, just because it's printed in a magazine or on a website doesn't mean it's necessarily right. Like I've listened to Matthew Berry and other guys before say, go draft Michael Vick and Antonio Gates, and they've had miserable years, and I came in last place, so I only had 4 wins.
In the end, you got to remember one thing. So I'm going to give one little piece of vague, advice, and I got one thing a little more specific. In the end, fantasy football is a crapshoot. I will never forget one year I took one thing. Matthew Berry said. I did the thing. You pick up a defense every week. He said, Bengals had a good. They played the Browns first week, shut them out or something like that. He said, pick up the Bengals defense. No, they were playing the Browns that week, and the Browns got destroyed by the Steelers. Bengals had a solid game against, I think, the Ravens, and then they were playing the Browns. So they were playing the Browns this week, and pick up the Bengals defense. They're looked pretty good against Baltimore, and they're playing the Browns. What are the Browns going to do? They couldn't even complete a pass. Lo and behold, that was the week they start Derek Anderson, and him and Braylon Edwards combined for 6 touchdowns. Bengals got me negative 20 points that week, and I lost by about 10. So Bengals single-handedly lost that game for me.
Nothing better than Fantasy Horror Story.
Right, exactly. So in the end, fantasy's a crapshoot. Don't overthink it. If a specific advice, The NFL nowadays is a system league. It's not the play. And we're playing a game where we look at the players. The NFL's not about the players anymore. It's about the system.
Right.
Everywhere you go, like Patriots can cycle in whoever they want. So I guess if that's something in the middle rounds, I mean, you know the players who are going early. They're the studs. Look at the team. Look at the situation. You're not drafting any Raiders, so don't think, okay, this guy's the number 2 on the Raiders. You're better off, I think, with the number 4 on a good team than you are with the number 1 on a number 2 on a terrible team. I don't want anything of like Julius Thomas this year. Don't want to touch the Jaguars. Don't want to touch the Raiders. Give me like whoever you want on the Packers.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. So there you go. I mean, that's really good advice from Gene. Gene obviously is doing his stuff. I try to give you the best what I can without giving too much away. But there's a little fantasy portion of a podcast I was really excited to do. Before I wrap this up, I know Gene I promised Gene to talk a little about SummerSlam. So quickly wrap up, give a couple, pros and cons of SummerSlam and just the direction of the WWE.
The E, state of the E. Now so I was in Barclays Center for SummerSlam. It was a good time. Third event, WWE event I've been to. All 3 were pay-per-views. I went to Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden, 2011.
So only pay for the big stuff.
Only big ticket or I'm out. Yeah, that was actually Survivor Series was a big one. That was actually The Rock's first match back since leaving back when we were kids. That was pretty cool. Went to WrestleMania at the Garden, Giant MetLife Stadium. That was saw The Rock again, John Cena, The Undertaker, all that. This year, I gotta say,
that's just how you measure life. Is how many
times I've seen The Rock. Yeah. Exactly, twice. I'm in there twice, and I'll count the ballers like from last week where he was in the finale having sex on the desk as like half. Like Rock has ruined sex for everyone. No one will match like that. Him in that scene. So this one, I honestly thought. So coming in, I actually thought. So I was a little bit underwhelmed with like the lineup for the first 2, and this one I kind of thought was very good. This one I would have to say I thought it was the weakest of the 3. I think they kind of screwed up that they had 2 matches that were going very, very, very well, and kind of got weird with the ending in the end. So I don't know if anyone watches or saw. And then John Cena fought Seth Rollins. That one ended when Jon Stewart of The Daily Show, formerly of The Daily Show, hit John Cena with a chair. This is wrestling, people. And then, I'm not even going to get in. There was Brock Lesnar, former UFC champion, many-time WWE champion, The Undertaker. He's the legend. Like, watching him actually come out of the tunnel is, like, one of the coolest things in all sports, any show you go to. It's still awesome. It was a great match until the end. It just got very weird. Wrestling has a tendency to do this because you have 2 guys who are, like, big draws, and you want to make them both coming out still looking strong. So this was false finish. It was a real shit show. Anyway, another thing that I was a little underwhelmed at, normally what really sells me on this, the reason you go is not even for the match in the ring, you go for the crowd. Because the crowd's going nuts, and it's a great time. Before this show, they had a show called WWE's, like, minor leagues, basically. But, it's a fake sport. So you got your performers, and they're going to put on the show.
That's all we do in this podcast, fantasy stuff, fake stuff.
Fake stuff, only fantasy football and wrestling, like fake. So it's called NXT, and it's got all the hardcore fans of wrestling watch that. I was not there. Joe Calabrese was there. That lets you know. Like,
Joe Calabrese is not here.
Joe Calabrese is not here right now. Right. So I had a life. I was at Zach Brown Band that night. Joe does not have a life. He was at NXT that night. So a lot of hardcore fans, they're the ones who were leading the chants every night at the big events. A lot of them were at NXT, and it was apparently an awesome show. I felt like, and you could definitely tell the next night, everyone was burnt out. So it was things like people wanted to get into. Like, people loved Dean Ambrose. They wanted to get into it. People loved Dolph Ziggler. They wanted to cheer Dolph Ziggler. They just couldn't get into it too much, I felt like. And I felt like they were going crazy for Undertaker and Brock Lesnar, to an extent. Honestly, like, I was expecting, like, the roof to come off when that happened. But, like, and it was a good enough crowd for that. Good enough crowd for John Cena. Everyone likes to react to John Cena, like, whether you want to cheer him or you want to boo him mercilessly.
Very polarizing. Yeah.
Very polarizing. And they were into that, but everything else, and I felt like they would be... There was one match, like, it was 2 hardcore guy favorites. Fat guy Kevin Owens and some other guy named Cesaro. They were, like, wrestling out in Canada and Montreal for forever, and like all the hardcore guys went to how awesome they are. Weren't that into that match, so you could definitely sense the fatigue there. So Otherwise, that's all I got to say about SummerSlam. But
it was pretty good. I mean, that was like they should pay you for the analysis you just gave them that. Very, very informative podcast we had today. So it was an hour and change, full of just chock full of knowledge and stuff to help you out. The dummies of fantasy, for the wrestling fans aside Joe Calabrese, to listen to Gene talk about the pay-per-views and the direction of the WWE. You can't beat. I'm telling you what. We might be a small time thing, but whether it's wrestling or fantasy football, horse racing, or you have Joe Crawlin with all the soccer stuff.
Yeah,
we're going to give you some good insight. So I am
any way that we can.
I am very proud of our staff. I guess we can call them our unpaid staff, our voluntary staff. I'm very happy with that. But again, even if your fantasy football draft has not happened yet, don't be shy. You can tweet at us at DNS_podcast or at myself at Edward L. Murphy. On Twitter, Gene uses Twitter here and there. You have at Gene DeMaio. It's at Gene, GeneDemaio. There's no space in between that. And another one I think is at NYGD_blue.
Yeah.
So you can tweet at us any of your questions. We'll have an answer them. Although I did put out a bunch of Twitter questions and Facebook questions before, and nobody responded. So you guys have to get better on that. So we love answering your questions.
Yeah. Well, we got to get back into the flow. We've been off for a few weeks.
Hey, it's vacation. I was in the Caribbean. I was in the Caribbean. You were out and doing Zach Brown and wrestling some work, and he's a fat head now. The Wolf of Wall Street over here. So we're busy. We're doing it. It's the best time of year for us. Football's coming back, so we'll definitely get more podcasts with all that stuff coming up. This podcast hopefully will be out before your draft, so you could listen to this, get a couple of pieces of info. All our friends in our league could come and listen to this and steal our thoughts. Hopefully they won't do that. But again, so thanks to all those who have listened and stuck through it. I know Ryan Miller wrote a really good piece on Kristaps Porzingis, and has another piece that we will review that he's sending over. So just a couple good things coming out from him. Our very own writer from the Staten Island Advance helping us out too. So look out for that. So other things to look forward to. But again, anyway, any final thoughts? Any last words?
Nah, I really got everything out.
We did get everything out.
So, yeah,
it was a good one.
It was a long one.
I feel like this podcast is just way more. It's just way better without Joe Calabrese.
Yeah, you got to see. Joe has a tendency to drag on about just minute things, and like everything needs to be explained. And we hit on everything, but we didn't feel the need to explain everything. I said, Antonio Brown's good. He's consistent. We left it at that. We did not get into any specific games of Antonio Brown, like that one catch he had against the Bengals, which got you a lot of points.
Yeah, right. It's efficient. It's very businesslack.
Anyway,
I enjoy
big
this.
Business, Bank of America business.
Yeah, the Gene's a consultant, so
yeah.
I hope you enjoy this because we did, and it was a lot of fun. I've never laughed more during a podcast with the crazy as always Gene DeMaio. So we'll put this out tomorrow. Should be the Thursday the 27th, so listen to it. We'll try to help you out. And until next time, we'll say see you then.